If you like to make your NFL games a little bit more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast. We are presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Those of you checking us out on DKN or YouTube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. You can see the helmets and the game balls and stuff. That was a long time ago at this point. Thankfully, though, it enabled me to get all these other gigs, calling games for the Eagles and CBS and Westwood One and a bunch of podcasts. It's been awesome talking about the quarterbacks in this upcoming draft with Emory Hunt on the College Draft Podcast. Highly recommend that show. Greg Cosell, obviously phenomenal on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, which is now only 3 times a week this offseason. If you're into learning about the coaching changes and what it could mean from a fantasy standpoint, quite frankly, from a prop betting standpoint, you're going to want to listen to the Fantasy Feast podcast or watch it, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. The star of the show is that guy. His name is Steve Fezzik, at Fezzik Sports on social media, and only at Fezzik Sports on social media. Steve, our guy Grades is not ready yet with the season in review, which I always love because he gets real specific with the things that we did well and the things that we did not do well. But I got to tell you, I'm fired up for today's show because there's a lot of futures bets that are already out there. You can bet on the champion, the conference winner. You can name the finalists, exact result, champion specials, winning conference. Then you can bet on the awards. You can bet team specials. There's already stuff on the draft. There's already stuff for the player props. So I think that might be the first question, Steve. And I should mention I'm at Ross Tucker NFL on social media. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. There is a lot of information, a lot of available bets. Do you just it's a little overwhelming to be honest with you. You just slowly but surely click on all of them over at DraftKings and see what's available and what you might be interested in?
Yes, but I have like a quarterback that goes through his rotations. I go through my rotations, and the first thing I always look at is stuff I can bet yes or no, over or under. So I can bet both ways. So now I can't do that in terms of the futures, who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to win the conference, things like that. We talk about those bets, the needle and the haystack bets. Only one team can win the Super Bowl. So it's pretty rare that you're going to find value looking at that board. Having said that, I know I did play a rogue number on the Eagles plus 750 to win the Super Bowl. That's the only futures bet I've made. However, when you go to player props, look at what DraftKings doing. This is really cool. They got player props up, overs or unders. You can bet a player to do well or to not do so well on major quarterbacks. I know they got Barkley up, running back, 1,500 rush yards. Only 2 running backs had 1,500 rush yards. So, that's up. But where I chose to focus this week is on quarterbacks. Now, having said that, Ross, let me talk about skill position players, basic strategy. Pros love playing unders. Why do we love playing unders? If you did nothing more than play every wide receiver, every quarterback, and every running back under and tight end for the year, for their numbers, historically, you've cashed about 60% of your bets. How is that even possible? Well, there's 3 ways to win, basically. 1, the player can underperform, obviously. 2, the player can get injured. And then it's a free roll. You basically win. And 3, the player could actually either lose his job, or in the case of a running back, you could have a case where he was supposed to be the lead ball carrier and he becomes a tandem backfield where they're 1 and 2 and he just doesn't get enough usage because of that. So there's so many different paths to victory. I love playing skill position players under the total. Having said that,
well, Steve, you got to slow down. This is like this is like 3 minutes, 4 minutes you're talking, and I got a zillion questions as you're going. You can't do this to me, okay? We got a 25-minute show, dude. All right. So number one, very fascinating. I don't want to lose sight of this, okay? Let's start with this. Why do you pick yes or no only bets?
Because if it's only offered in one direction, then the odds maker can go ahead and shade their numbers and basically short pay you on what you should be paying, because you can't bet the other side. You can't bet no, teams aren't going to win the Super Bowl. They're not going to win the conference. They're not going to win the division. So, by example, you might see the odds on a bad team to win the division being 20-1 when the true odds are much more like 50-1. So it's very rare that you're going to get any good odds on long shots because of that.
Oh, okay. Because there's not another side, they don't give you the true odds.
Yeah, and this dates back to, there were some big payouts. I think the Twins won the World Series one year at like 200-1. The Rams, greatest show on turf, won 200-1. And the bookies in Vegas basically said, that's it with these long shot payouts. We are just not going to ever pay out on most cases more than 100-1, even if we think the true odds are 500-1.
Yeah, but how many people really bet the greatest show on turf Rams in 1999 to win the Super Bowl 200-1?
Well, that's interesting. Only a few. This is documented in the book, The Odds by Chad Millman. But once the season started, the Stardust, the book in question, made the mistake of leaving it up. And they anchored their number to that 100-1. And the Rams started 4-0, and they were crushing with their two great, Isaac Bruce and Terry Holt, their wide receivers.
And Kurt Warner turned out to be good.
Exactly. So they left it at like 50-1 and 25-1. So they had $1 million worth of liability that ultimately they lost, and that they were massaging and hedging all year long.
Okay. And then you said, look at what DraftKings is doing. Is this unique? Like, explain what DraftKings is doing with the player props. Is this unique? Because I could tell you were very excited about that.
It's not unique to do it in July. It is extremely unique to do it in February. Heck, Ross, we just had Valentine's Day. The Super Bowl just ended. Nobody puts up props this early. So DraftKings has come first to market so hard and so good with this. I am massively impressed with it.
Got it. I talk with them, obviously, because our network, my podcast network, is part of DraftKings, and that's a concerted effort by them. It's a concerted effort to get more markets up earlier, and that seems pretty clear. All right, the next thing. We haven't even gotten to your bets yet. Oh, I missed this one. You've already bet the Eagles plus 750?
Yeah, it was the best number I could get. I think the Eagles, as in terms of power ratings going into this NFL year, they're the best team, and I like their path. I think the NFC is a much easier path for them to get to the Super Bowl. And frankly, I don't think you're ever going to see that number again. So fly, Eagles, fly. I expect them to win 12 games this year, and they should be the favorite, in my opinion, to win the Super Bowl.
How much of that is recency bias?
Not very much, because my power ratings, as you recall, I've been high. I was high on the Eagles all year long. And it's true, I had the Ravens power rated higher than the Eagles, but that's just a regular.
The Ravens were by far the best team, is I think the exact quote.
Exactly, and they were. They during the regular season, it's a regular season power rating, and the Ravens aren't as good in the playoffs. And we can debate why that's the case, but I don't trust Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in the playoffs. But I absolutely trust the Eagles.
I think you guys know by now. I do like to drink alcohol from time to time, and I do not like to spend a lot of money when I do so, which is why I'm a big fan of Smirnoff. It's the world's #1 vodka, and you can get it without breaking the bank. I'm big, actually, Jack, on like Smirnoff and Pedialyte. Smirnoff and like any type of Gatorade, because then I'm, getting a little buzz, getting a little what I'm looking for there, but also hydrating at the same time. It's amazing, almost as amazing as this episode, by the way. Highly encourage you guys, if you've never had Smirnoff vodka, do it. It's Smirnoff Extraordinary. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. May vary by state. Please not share with anyone under legal drinking age. Okay, next one. Why are we not all putting all of our money on the unders for all of these skill guys? Because the one thing you didn't point out, Steve, is that they can also not play the last game or two for the unders because they're on a good team. See Saquon Barkley, see Kelsey and Mahomes. So there's actually a fourth way that they don't hit their number, because I'm assuming the number is based on them playing 17 games. You said historically 60% of under player prop bets win. Why are we not putting all of our bankroll, or a lot of it at least, into betting the unders on all these player props if it's historically 60%?
Well, the reason it's 60% is that you've got all summer that the public likes to bet on these players over. So there's pressure upwards typically on these players. So oftentimes you get your very best numbers not until post. And why do you want to tie up your money also for a year? Even if we're going to win, do we want to tie up our entire bankroll? What are we going to bet when even money hits on September 10th and we talk about week one best bets and we're all in because we just shoved with every one of these bets? So you got to manage your bankroll. You can't just go crazy and bet 100 player props all for 1% of your bankroll and you got nothing left to wager with.
Okay, so this is really important, and I want to make sure I nail this. Typically, we get the better of the number because we record these shows Tuesday morning bright and early, and so we get the numbers. A lot of times we get closing line value before it moves. You're telling me that even with DraftKings having all these prop bets out right now, that you think we will do better waiting till closer to the season because these numbers will go up over the summer?
In more cases than not. There's always exceptions to the rule, but absolutely. I do need to comment about my opening where I just went on and on for 3 minutes. It felt a little bit like Bruce Springsteen fans. If you ever look at his first album, Greetings from Asbury Park, it is a fabulous album, but there's so much there because he never had an album before, and he just jammed it into one album. So if you never listened to that in full, it's really a spectacular, chock full of Easter egg album.
Got it. Okay. And then the next thing, you were about to get to you said you went on and on about the unders, but then you were just about to get to the prop bets that you like when I cut you off because I had like 4 questions from the other things you'd already said. So now, sir, I'm teeing you back up on the prop bet. It sounded like you were about to take some overs, actually.
So the entire show, I've spoken about how great it is to play skill position players under and how that's the way to look. And you've even suggested, Ross, we put our entire portfolio on them. And now I'm going to break all the rules. It's like the Willy Wonka. It's like, rules? What rules? I didn't see any rules. Do you see any rules, Charlie? Patrick Mahomes, over 4,050 pass yards. I understand where this number is coming from because he only threw for 3,928 last year. And it's getting harder and harder to throw the ball in the NFL and to get long gains because the defenses, are protecting against the long pass play. Having said that, look at the data, Ross. If you went over this number, the 4,050, well, Mahomes has gone over 4,000 yards the 6 seasons before last year. He's had 2 seasons that he averaged over 5,000 yards. Overall, you look at the last 7 years, he's averaging like 4,600. He's well over this number. And think about this. The Chiefs, they just won 15-2. They had the lead in all these games. And because of that, they were running the ball more. Mahomes is in his prime. He's 29. It's not like he's aging. I would expect he would, going forward the next 3 years, be more like that 4,500 target amount that he's been achieving versus slipping below 4,000 for the first time in 7 years last year. So over 4,050 Mahomes.
As if I couldn't already love my dudes at Labatt enough, now you can get cool stuff for doing what you're going to do anyway. Drink beer. It's called Buy Beer, Get Gear from Labatt. Head to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. How cool is this? You get points for every purchase at any store, bar, or stadium, any size, any product, anywhere you're buying Labatt. Buy beer, get gear. Go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. Wow. I love that bet. Because also, they've won an inordinate amount of close games. We know that, right? 17 straight one-score games. They're going to be in more, I feel like, this upcoming year where they lose the game or they're playing from behind more. I also think, they'll make a concerted effort to improve the offensive line, which will only help him to throw more. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get more weapons in there. I don't know what Kelsey's going to do. I don't know what, they got with, but I do think that they're going to try to get him some more weapons. So love that bet. What else you got?
All right. Very similar handicap and bet. Buffalo, Josh Allen over 3,750 yards. I love this bet so much. Allen went under that number by 20 yards this year. But if you look at the 4 years before, dude threw for 4,300 plus each and every year. Like Mahomes, he's absolutely in his prime. He's 28 years old. But the one thing, and I didn't mention this with Mahomes, but I will mention it with Josh Allen, he ran the ball a lot. These quarterbacks don't need to run the ball for their team to be successful, nor will they as their careers progress, because at some point, no matter how durable you are, there's always the injury concern. And I think both these quarterbacks are going to, Mahomes already does this, but I think Josh Allen more and more is going to save his runs for the third down, move the chain downs, and not have any prescribed runs on first and second down. So if I look at the data, 2024 was an aberration. And I fully expect him to go back to that 43 to 4,400 number that he's achieved the 4 years before. Josh Allen over 3,750 pass yards. And I would bold prediction on both these quarterbacks, Ross. The closing number is going to be much higher for both of them. It simply has to be, because others are going to do the analysis that I'm presenting today, and they're going to land on the same bets.
Ooh, yeah, I love that. He also did not play in the last game. Now, that could happen again, right? Like, that could easily happen again. Mahomes didn't play in the last 2 games, by the way, which should be noted. I'm curious, before we move on, any others, is any of the award stuff, is that all the same as the future stuff where it's MVP, Lamar Jackson plus 550, Josh Allen plus 550, you're just not doing it? It's still needle in the haystack.
I don't do it. I know guys that make tons of money doing it. Typically, though, they're making those bets once the season starts, and it's more rookie of the year. And like in the NBA, it's like defensive player of the year. I'll use a great example. The scrambling that occurred when Wembanyama was like minus 2,000. He was a lock to win defensive player of the year. Well, he didn't play enough games. He didn't qualify when he went out for the season. So there was a complete and utter scramble when the guys who were second and third and fourth, now they're the favorites, right, to win. So like you had a window of 5 minutes when the news broke that you could actually get down on those guys. And there are people that specialize in just that sort of thing, injury information, and betting these awards.
It's interesting, too, because my initial reaction, looking at the awards, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, I was thinking Comeback Player of the Year, Aiden Hutchinson and Christian McCaffrey. Well, I look at it, Aiden Hutchinson's plus 195, McCaffrey's plus 300. That's not enough for me. That's not enough value.
Is C-Mac even going to be playing by Halloween? I mean, great player, but I mean, not with my money, Ross. Too much of a risk.
All right, so then you got the team specials, which are interesting, like Ravens to win 12 plus regular season games is plus 125. So they kind of have a sneaky, they have some sneaky win totals up, kind of, Steve, but they're not over under. It's, some team specials, as they call it.
So
Zay
that's
Flowers to score 10 plus receiving touchdowns, etc.
Yeah, so the Ravens, basically you can bet over 11.5, right? Plus 125. That's what your bet is for them to win 12 or more games. I think Baltimore's probably going to come, gosh, I went back and forth between 11 and 11.5. You might get an 11, so I wouldn't want to go over 11.5 when you can get 11 on Baltimore. I do think that we're going to see, like I said earlier in the show, the Eagles I think will be 12. I want to ask you, Kansas City, for their over-under for season wins, I'm going back and forth between 10.5 and 11. I got to tell you, I don't think I'm going to get to 11. I know they won 15. I think they're a 10.5 win team. I got to analyze the schedule. What do you think? Would that be too low?
I would be taking the over. They're gonna win 11 games. I hope it is 10.5, so we can bet the over 11. They don't have that many draft bets up right now. I'm looking at it. You can bet on the number 1 pick, and they got a lot of guys there. You can bet on the team to make the first pick, the QB props, so first quarterback selected, and then player drafted by. That might be the most interesting thing is like which team will Ashton Genty, the Boise State running back, be drafted by, or Travis Hunter, but there's only a couple up. So they don't have very many up right now. But man, Steve, you and I talked about it other years, and we'll get into this as we get closer. There's a lot of opportunities. They put more of these up, and then information comes out where, everybody's raving about Tyler Shuck right now, this Louisville quarterback. So I was checking to see if there was an over/under on his draft position, or if there was something about who the third quarterback is off the board. But I'm not seeing it up there. It's not. They don't have it yet.
And you nailed it. That's exactly the bet that the pros love making. Where is dude going to go in the draft, right? And they'll put an over/under on someone at 20.5, or heck, even 129.5 for a more obscure player, a player that's supposed to go in the 4th round. And those are really the bets. I can tell you, if you asked the bookmakers in Vegas and you asked them, what props did I put up that I no longer put up and I really regret doing so, they'll be the first to tell you, oh, we get destroyed on these props. I can't recall. I think there was a safety who ran a really slow 40 and he just fell in expectations in the draft. That when the news gets out on either a medical or a bad combine report, typically once you see a player dropping or rising, let's say you started out at 24.5 and then you see him at 27.5, gun to my head, I'm going over 27.5. The object in motion remains in motion. Once the word gets out, typically the move is deadly accurate. And if the market is bullish or bearish on a player, it tends to bear out.
I might ask you one more player prop, but I'd like to get to at least one email question because we have tremendous listeners and viewers, and they ask awesome questions. Quite frankly, better questions than I can. As a reminder, if you take advantage of any of our sponsors ever, heck, even if you just get a free estimate at westshorehome.com/Ross, email me, ross@rosstucker.com. You'll go to the top of the list of the questions for Steve. This one comes to us from Aaron. Again, ross@rosstucker.com. Hey guys, religious listener, big fan of your show. What are your thoughts about playing plus money on alternate NFL regular season win totals instead of minus money on standard win totals? For example, Ravens under an 11.5 to win was minus 135. He went Ravens alternate under 10.5 at plus 150. For everyone, he's got other math here. If the Ravens land exactly on 11, the alternate turns a winner into a loser, but in all other cases that go under, you win about twice as much. That's from Aaron.
Yeah, so I've done extensive work on this, and I got to give credit. I think Drew Dinsick, the whale capper, is the first one that talked a lot about this. And I kind of poo-pooed it at first because I know like half a win tends to be worth about 46 cents is what my number is. So a full win, without going into boring you with all the math, is worth about 100 cents. Well, it turns out you can get more than 110 cents oftentimes on the alt number. So if you get shorted by a game, so let's say, well, I used an example. I said the Eagles should be at 12, all right? So let's say we're playing the Eagles and we're going, and let's just say the number comes 11.5 to make the math easier. If you can go over 12.5 and get more than 2-1, plus 200 or more, that is actually the bet that I'd recommend making. So if instead of laying vig minus $1.10, you can get plus 200 or more, even though you get shorted by a game, the math works out that that's the superior bet.
Okay, so it's a good call by him. It's a good question.
Great question.
So I'm surprised. The last one I'll ask you about quickly, Steve. Jaden Daniels over/unders 3,300 passing yards.
They all look low.
That seems low.
They all look low. I basically went through all those, and the reason that I rejected Jaden Daniels was the injury risk, because he
Same with Hurts and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and he had issues, where he was banged up last year, just the way he plays. So that's why I didn't play it. But if he plays 17 games, he's going to go over. Absolutely.
Check him out on social media at Fezzik Sports and only at Fezzik Sports. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We're at Ross Tucker Pod. We love the engagement. We love the emails. And we love those of you that check us out on YouTube. Other than that, good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for tuning in to Even Money. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.